right. Hi everyone. It's been a crazy week, and today I'm honored to have with me on stream the People's Champion and now North California Regional Champion 2017, Timmy Wong. Welcome back, Timmy, and congrats again on such a big win.
Thanks, Ben. Good to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, it was a very crazy tournament. I was following it live, and you all had this tournament scorekeeping app that was online, so I could actually keep track of everyone's scores. And boy, was that a stacked field! So many good players there.
Yeah, that app was super cool. I wish every tournament could use that. I need to find out more about it.
I do too. That is amazing. I mean, for people who are watching all over the world, it's really cool indeed. So yeah, we are here today to talk about your regional winning decks. And for those of you who are out the loop who haven't been to Netrunner DB, the TLDR for the week is that Timmy took down the regional with an acid spam corp deck and a DLR based runner deck. I smell degeneracy here. I guess we are stripping the title of People's Champion from you, Timmy.
Oh no! I worked so hard for that.
Just kidding. I mean, so the thing is, we did spar against each other in the lead up to the regionals, and we played a whole range of decks. Timmy more so than I did, and I can vouch for Timmy's sheer creativity. Honestly, I don't think I have ever played against someone with such a variety of good decks in the tank. Like old school decks like Blue Sun and Gabe, or towards the more modern range, you have a whole range of Ayla decks that you threw against me. I'm like, wow. You are wrecking my face with them every single time. I have no idea how you come up with these decks.
Oh, thanks, dude. Mostly by spending way too much time on Netrunner DB, just staring at deck lists. I need a better hobby, probably.
Yeah, I think people would love to hear how you come up with so many creative decks, but we'll save that for another time. For now, we'll talk a bit about a little story that we had. So we'll start with the co-op deck, your HB Asset Spam deck. So we were testing the power level of Post Most Wanted list decks, right? And I took what seemed like the most naturally strongest runners, like your Temujin run-based Andy, your Slums Wiz, and I went up against your HB Asset Spam and I got absolutely crushed. Like, it wasn't even close. It always felt like you were one step ahead and had control of my tempo. So from that experience, like you constantly winning against me with your HB deck, I wonder if you subscribe to the notion of a best deck. And if you do, would you consider that HB spam in general to be the best deck right now?
It's not a super well-defined term, but I'd say if there is such a thing as a best deck, it's probably that one, right? I'd say it's a deck that's defining the metagame as more than any other right now. And it's a deck that doesn't seem to have any clear weaknesses. So those are two hallmarks of what you might consider a best deck. How about you, Ben? What would you say? Do you believe in a best deck? And if not, why not?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, back in the day when the card pool was smaller, I don't know, or maybe Order and Chaos days, maybe earlier, for example, like Andromeda was very clearly the best deck. There are so few cards in the card pool that there are only so many competitively viable archetypes that you can create, and typically one faction will be above the rest just because they had the better cards. This is not really the case though anymore, so it feels more like a rock, paper, scissors meta, and as we all know, in a rock, paper, scissors game, there is no best rock or paper or scissors. So I wouldn't say there's a best deck, but I do like the way you defined it. That a deck is meta warping in the sense that you are kind of obliged to tech against it if you want to if you are going to consistently make the cut. And HB Asset Spam definitely fits that bill. As said, I was playing Slums Wiz against you, and I just got wrecked. I could only keep up with your assets for so long. So that was a very good sign that HB Spam had a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah. More about the rock, paper, scissors thing. It's even though in basic rock, paper, scissors, everything is equal, so everything is best. But in something like Netrunner, clearly everything will not be even, right? Like
Yep, of
uh,
course.
in today's example, like I, I don't know. What's a good example? Netrunner is too complicated.
Yeah,
Uh,
it is. But let's say, in the days of Butcher Shop, for example,
sure.
when Scorched Earth and Traffic were good cards, Breaking News was a good card. Would you say that's the best deck? I mean, you could. It's meta defining, but if everyone decides to slot 3+ creeps in their runner decks, is it still the best deck? So that's why I don't really subscribe to the notion of it, because typically you can tech your deck hard enough to get a favorable matchup even against the best of decks.
True. There are a lot of silver bullets available for everyone. The problem is that they're all really awkward to put into your deck generally, like, and still have a strong, like, proactive game plan. Um, and your deck, like, if you don't have a proactive game plan, you still can't win even against what you're hating against because you're not doing anything.
Yeah, that's quite true. I guess that's one reason why a lot of people tend to label things with the label of a best deck, because most of the time you do want a runner with adequate coverage against most of the field, and that basically forces certain decks to become the best, because you can't spend too many deck slots attacking against them. So that's fair.
And
So
the best decks tend to be like awkward to tech against, right? Like PE was used to be very good, but it was also like very easy to tech against because you just play one feedback filter in Andy and then you don't lose. But right now with like HB asset spam, it's people are trying like slums and wizard and stuff, and none of it seems to be enough. You have to like go more extreme, and that's really awkward on your deck. For Butcher Shop, they were weak to Plastrate, but they also had like plans against it, so like Shattered Remains and Astra, stuff like that. Yeah, so it's really complicated, right? Corpse
yeah,
can
that's true.
do stuff, yeah.
You bring up a very good point. The robustness of a deck, in short, is quite important. Like, that's why CTM was so dominant at Worlds as well. All right, so with that in mind, let's look at the HB deck itself. So a bit of the origin of the deck. So if I'm not wrong, you came up with your deck list from scratch independently from Jonas, who published Moon and Knights. Is that right?
Correct, yeah. I was privy to Jonas's some of his like deck building process on Slack. So uh, so when he started like sharing this like HB Estelle Moon like successful field test thing, I was like, this looks kind of familiar. Hope it doesn't catch on. And then everyone started like working on it, and people are saying like, oh my god, this doesn't lose to anything. Beats Wizard, beats everything. I'm like, oh, okay.
Whoops.
It looks really cool though. I do appreciate it because I built around a Stone Moon, of course, and I also built around Successful Field Test. I think it's a very cool card, if like slightly unhinged.
Yeah, the funny thing was, while you were busy crushing the tournament, I was on Slack and reading just all sorts of people trying to figure out what card modifications you made from the
Right.
original Moon and Ice, and they didn't know that your deck was pretty much divergent. Like, it was, you came up with it independently. So, I mean, both your decks still share the very similar core in, ETF, Estelle Moon to power your drawing economy. Then you have Clone Suffrage, Friends, ELP, all that good stuff. But you have a lot of divergence with regards to like economy, your card filtering engines, and most notably your win condition as well. So that's really cool. Like, even the agenda suite is very different.
Yeah. So I really wasn't sure whether it was better or worse than the other deck because we played it. You played the Jonas's version, and it was really good.
Both were really good, yes, but given that his version was a lot more publicized, I think yours came as a huge surprise to the field. I would you say that you won a couple of games based off the surprise factor?
Possibly, yeah. My first round, I faced a good player from San Diego, and he was on Wizard with Maul, Slums, Hacktivist, and Rumor Mill.
That sounds like very bad news.
Yeah, he played all of those in like fairly quick succession. I was like super worried. But he was also playing like directly around the published list because he clearly like practiced a lot against it and figured out like, okay, I need all this stuff to fight it, right? So he was playing around. He didn't play around like my NAPD. He thought he was done once he trashed 2 clone suffrages, so he was like super rused when I res the 3rd clone suffrage. Like it put him on tilt.
Nice.
So yeah, there's definitely merit to playing something that looks kind of like and is like similar to a established list, but it also has some really key differences.
Yep, that's hot tech for all of you listening out there. Play surprise list.
Yeah.
You won't regret it.
Just like
so
the second place finisher, John D. He was playing this like Scorpius deck no one had ever seen before, and I think he got a ton of surprise wins from like one Scorch because people are like, "Who plays Scorch now?"
Yeah, or running into snares on 4th click. Who knew Scorpius run snares? It's pretty good, turns out.
He's good.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty details themselves, your deck lists. Let's begin with economy, shall we? So let's, why don't you walk us through your choice of asset economy? So you're running Total Bags and Mumble Temple. So that's 5 whole influence on that, which the Moonie Knights deck did not bother spending on. Instead, Moonie Knights went for in-faction options like Advanced Lines and Marilyn. Why the choices?
These are like traditionally the most powerful asset spam econ options. I used to like not have a lot of disrespect for turtlebacks because it was just like a more situational pad campaign, in my opinion. But that like really changed when friends became a thing. Because when you like friends for free with 1 turtlebacks, and like when you have multiple turtlebacks, friends just like makes you money every turn. That is truly bonkers.
Yeah, that's quite true. And if you have a Jeeves on top of it, that's extra money as well.
Yeah.
Right, I can definitely see that. Now, what about Mamba Temple?
Mamba Temple is just a really, really efficient card. It's really good in asset span because you can always spend the credits on resing assets, even if they don't run your ice. It's not actually as like crazy powerful as it used to be. I'm not quite sure why. Like often the credits will go to waste, but there is an advantage in that like it pays off very, very quickly. So against runners who try to deny your econ, they kind of like have to trash your Mamba Temple right away, or you just get value off of it fast, and then you're like solvent because the Mamba Temple reses everything for really cheap.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's something I only realized after our little discussion. Previously we had a discussion. I was looking at your list before the regionals, and I was like, shouldn't you play Marylands instead? They pay out the same rate as Mamba Temples, and have the shuffle effect to boot. Like, surely I would make those swaps. But then after thinking about it, I realized Mamba Temple actually pays out the moment you play it, because yeah, you can res it and spend the credits. You can't do that with Maryland. And of course, 1 less to rest. And yeah, it turns out that is a big factor, especially early in the game. So
yeah, it's a big deal for Drip Econ how much it costs, right? That's why prepaid is better in Kate, because it's like free. Well, Mamba Temple in HB is like you get 2 credits for playing it. So it's 2 credits every turn that costs you like -2 credits.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts. Yeah, I mean, I'm completely sold now. I mean, that's good influence spent. All right, so that's economy. What about card filtering? Daily Business Show is something that you settle on, 2 copies of it. So how important is DBS from your deck? From personal experience, when I was playing my runner against your HB spam, towards the mid to late game, it just felt impossible once I started losing the asset war, because once DBS was up and running, you could just simply control agenda flow into HQ, and I couldn't simply just target DBSs to trash, because you would simply recur them with friends and clone suffrages, and unlike Sensi, they're not trivial to trash at all. So yeah, DBS is incredibly effective. How important is it for you?
It's very, very important. This deck has so many one-ups. People have commented on it. You have so many pieces to get together that like are really situationally powerful, and DBS digs you like a ton towards them. You res it for free with Mamba Temple. It costs so much to trash that the runner can't deal with it often because they have to fight like all the other stuff you're doing first. That's like easier to trash for them and like more threatening immediately. So you get like a lot of value from DBS before they can even think about getting it usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the deck used to play Sensi in the slot. Sensi is obviously would be really good. Like not really worth spending 5 influence on anymore. DBS costs
Nope.
1. But
Yeah.
honestly, HB is like really in a good spot for influence now that Eli is off the MWL. You can play like pretty much whatever you want.
I mean, you say that your deck doesn't contain a single Eli.
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
I know why. We'll get to that. But yeah, and not to mention daily business shows have some synergy within your deck, besides being exactly 2 to res, which is the sweet spot for Mamba Temple. It has the interaction with Estelle Moon as well. I'm sure you abuse that.
Yes. Not during this tournament. People were pretty good about trashing my, or like at least threatening to trash my Estelle Moons pretty quickly. But yeah, I remember this coming up in our testing. It's like, oh yeah, draw 7, put 1 on bottom. That's nice.
So good. I mean, the best thing is you do it on the runner's turn, so you get double the DBS triggers. Nasty. Okay, now the juicy bit of your deck, the part that everyone has been hyping up, the Timmy tech. Ronald 5, Friendship Upgraded. Love the deck name, by the way. So Ronald 5 was assisted as well by Encryption Protocol and ELP. So where did the idea for all these asset defense cards come from, and how effective was it during the day in general?
So my deck is based on the Spooky HB deck that Travis published. I'm not sure if he was the one who like invented the concept, but John D'Alessandri played it against me in a store champ and just like crushed me. So yeah, so I got the idea from there. I mean, I've always loved Encryption Protocol. It's like one of my pet cards actually. So like when making HB asset spam, it's like a supernatural choice to put in Encryption Protocol. When I tested with Kyle James before Worlds last year, he was trying to put Encryption Protocol into Gagarin to overload Wizard.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was a natural fit. The deck is kind of like built around the Encryption Protocol, I'd say. It's like the idea is that you overload with assets, and the protocols really make it hard for the runner to pinpoint trash the only things that matter, right? That's like a strategy that a lot of people have proposed. And if they want to do that, they're not trashing your protocols, so they have to have a really good economy to be able to afford trashing all your stuff over and over again that you're recurring. So the protocols are really good in that situation. Ronald 5 is a lot more situational because he costs 3. But he's great for the memes. He's also he's really great in certain situations where the runner is like trying to build up, and then they want to like try to dismantle your board all at once, which is often a pretty good strategy for them. Then like if you have Ronald 5, they can't really do that. They have to trash like one thing per turn on their last click, or they lose a bunch of clicks, and that makes them really predictable. Especially combined with Enhanced Login Protocol. Now they have to spend like 2 clicks, like half their turn, trashing one thing, and they can't do anything else afterward. So that is quite oppressive if you get all the stuff set up.
Yeah, oppressive is the word. Like when I played against you, I think I was doing fine with both Temujin Andy and Slums Wiz, but once you manage to get a critical number of defensive assets on the board at the same time with a couple of clone suffrage movements, it just becomes suddenly so overwhelming to trash at once. Like, I can imagine like dropping a Ronald 5 and then frenzing for 2 clone suffrages. Where do you find a tempo to trash that? It's pretty nasty.
Yeah. Ronald 5 also doubles as the deck's best plan against Diaper, actually. I haven't tried this in practice, but if I face Diaper, my plan was to draw for Ronald 5 and protect him. And then if they don't get your Ronald 5, they have half the clicks to keyhole you.
That's brilliant. That's amazing. I mean, they will almost certainly trash the 105 first, but geez, that's good.
Yeah. But then they also have to
Awesome.
trash your Jacksons, and they all cost more probably, so they have to make a lot of extra money to pull this off.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Lovely. I mean, diapers more or less dead probably, but
I was like super
wow.
worried about it. But
Were you?
yeah, it seems like a good plan against me because I don't win super fast. They might have enough
That's
time to
true.
set up the combo.
True that. True that. Yeah, and going back to encryption protocol, actually, you mentioned John de Lysandre, who came in second in the same tournament as well,
So good.
running that
He's so
weird
good.
asset spam Scorpios deck.
Hmm.
I mean, it looks like he values the encryption protocol as well because he was running it in Scorpios.
Yeah,
And
6
I
encryption
remember
protocol top
actually,
2.
yeah, I know, right? Asset spam for the win. I mean, I was watching your finals game.
Hmm.
Someone periscoped it, and yeah, I mean, you were doing a pretty good job, but you were starting to fall behind. And after a while, you realize, oh wait, maybe I should trash these encryption protocols that are sitting out there. I've been ignoring this whole game.
Yeah, once you
And
got 2 tour guides, it's like, okay, all right, fine. I guess I'll give up and trash these things. Like,
yeah, but
yeah.
that basically won you the game because
Hmm.
you kept him in control for the rest of the game. So yeah, I think it seems like encryption protocol is pretty much a very underrated card. Has been for a long time, and people are just realizing what nasty stuff you can do with it.
One by itself is like really inconsequential, so it's like, oh yeah, I can ignore this. But once you get 2, it's really strong.
Yeah, the best thing is if you have friends to install two at the same time.
Yeah,
That's
we
the nasty part.
we did that dance in testing where like if the runner is trying to fight your stuff, you just get back 2 encryption protocols. That's no fun for them.
Yeah, it's not at all. It's really nasty. Alright, so let's move on and let's look at the win cons for this deck, which is, I guess, the part that people expected the least. So you have, as you said, a ton of one-offs, one Lakshmi, one Biotic for fast advance, one Sandberg. Do you find difficulty in winning consistently with these being one-offs, or have you found the diversity of options available to you during, like, during most games to be an edge that you had over the rest of the field?
I really like having a diverse set of win conditions. So does Jonas's Moon deck, honestly, right? He either like
Uh,
scores out with Caprice or with Lakshmi. I guess those are
yeah,
the
you
main
see, the thing
plans.
is, he runs 3 off Lakshmi, so
Hmm.
he's guaranteed to see one very early, and the Caprice are 2 offs, so you'll never be locked out of Caprice on a bad draw.
And does he have
Whereas
one
you,
biotic also?
one Biotic, yes,
Hmm.
but I guess Biotic is a bit of a different thing because I
Fewer
guess his
3/2 agendas.
yeah, it's not really one of the main win cons.
Yeah. This for this one, the one biotic is actually the main win con. It's pretty funny. Like eventually you just find it and play it and recur it with clone suffrage and like it just wins you the game because it's like a good win condition when you have money and more biotics, and that's like the entire rest of the deck. Um, so yeah, biotic labor been good forever. This is like some like crazy shell to support winning with one biotic labor, basically.
That's crazy.
Because if the runner doesn't fight your board, which a lot of runners can't, then your basic game plan is like biotic a 3/2, get biotic back. Biotic Vitruvius with Jeeves, get a counter. And then like get biotic back. And then you go like biotic Vitruvius counter biotic. So you have 5 clicks, and then you install
6. Yep.
advanced
Food.
global food 4 times, and Jeeves
Yeah.
click, get another click. Yeah. So you just fast advance at 7 points with one biotic labor.
That's crazy. I love it. Yeah, so I mean, in our games, it's felt a bit different. It felt like or rather, I felt like I was playing around the threat of Sandberg the whole time after I was
Mhm.
privy to it from the first go. Your deck seems like it is specifically designed to make money no matter what the runner does. And the moment I ignore your assets, you're just gonna recur diversified portfolio until you win on Sandberg. That was my bigger worry. And how big of a win con is that? Like,
It's a theoretical
End of
win con more than an actual one. Like, usually you can just win with Biotic instead of like trying to dirtle and make infinite money with Sandberg. But if they have like Claude or something like that, then yeah, just spam diversified, get all the money, and they can't possibly break your ice. So that's pretty good win condition also.
Cool, yeah, love it. And what about the final Lakshmi, the one Lakshmi? Did it come into play during the day at all?
Yeah, it's not really a central win condition, but it's something the runner has to respect, right? Once you res it, they have to kill it or they can never steal anything from HQ. It's really good HQ protection, and yeah, it often like scores unit agenda and then they have to go kill it. It's like really good value.
Nice. But it's not so much for... I mean, it's not something that you actively use to score agendas like the Moon Knights deck, right?
Not as often.
Because you don't run Cybernetics Court, so you are typically not that flooded with agendas, especially since you are burying most of them with DBS.
Exactly, yeah.
Nice.
Lakshmi fits really well into that other deck. Not quite so well into this one.
True. Yeah, but the one-off is always nice to have. I can see that. And defending your hand is always good. Yeah, so I think that more or less does it for the Corp deck. Any other interesting bits about the deck you'd like to point out, or any interesting moments on the day itself?
Let me look at my notes. Estelle Moon is pretty good, I hear.
I didn't get you here to say the obvious to me.
I mean, some people don't know yet. She's a very new card.
She is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's like, the fact that you can't possibly deny Estelle Moon, right? Like, you just like install two things on the same turn, and then they have to waste a click running your Estelle, and you just get 4 credits, at least.
Yeah.
So strong.
It is. Like, the only hard counter is Rumor Mill, and that's on the tier 3 MWL, so it's pretty hard to squeeze that in.
I guess the biggest threats people are starting to face pack are like Rumor Mill and Hacktivist Meeting. So the current war is like really crucial because ELP is very important for this deck to defend all your stuff.
For sure, yeah. If you lose the current war, I think you could be in a pretty hard place, especially if the current you're losing to is Hacktivist. That applies for any HB spam deck for that matter.
Fortunately, the deck is pretty good at scoring like a 3-2 agenda, so that's usually how you get rid of Hacktivist.
Good luck with that, with your one-off biotic.
You draw it a lot.
Yeah, I can see that. You sure do. Alright, so that's about it?
That's about it.
Alright, now let's move on to DLR Andy, also known as Poutine. Well, I haven't been to Canada before, and I'm dying to try some of that good stuff.
It's pretty good.
I mean, I was at, I mean, when I was at Worlds, I tried the one that FFG Center was selling.
Right,
I heard it was nothing compared to the Canadian version, and it was pretty good.
It was.
I can only imagine. Yeah, how good the authentic one is. Is there a good authentic poutine in California? Maybe I should go there someday.
Not that I know of, but I visited Canada to see my aunt a few years ago, so I tried some there.
Nice. All right. Yep. That's on my bucket list to do this. Anyway, from our playtesting, this one came as a bit of a surprise even to me when you did actually tell me that you were going to stick with DLR Andy, because this wasn't a deck that you practiced much against me with. I think we only did one game where you were DLR Andy.
Yeah.
So what was your thinking behind bringing this archetype?
So I had a tough time picking my runner deck because we concluded like, okay, the runner meta is fairly like obvious. People are going to play Criminal because Criminal has all the best cards and they didn't get hit at all by the NWL. People will play Magnum Max because Big Boy published it, and it's good.
Sure.
And so, like on the Corp side, we could target like those two decks and other decks that we thought would be good, like Wizard. But then on the runner side, it's like, what do? We have no idea what Corps people are playing. Like, we were trying to find like good Corp decks ourselves, and nothing seemed to really stick. Right? They all had like gaps.
Yeah, and a lot of them just folded straight up to HB spam.
yeah. So then like a few a few days before the tournament, like 3 days, we did like our last testing session, and I tried like a wizard deck against you playing HB spam, and it was like, oh my
Yep.
god, I can't win. And then I was trying, okay, I'll try this other runner deck that I thought might be good. Like we figured like any runner can possibly do pretty well because the corp field is so diverse, right? There's like no sense in heavily teching a runner deck in this sort of situation. So I thought I would play. Okay, I'll try Adam. uh, Adam.
Yes, you
Yeah.
have a very special spot in your heart for Adam. I
Yes.
know that.
So I tried like, okay, I'll try this other runner deck I've been thinking about. That seemed pretty good, but nothing. It turns out like nothing actually beats the HP acid spam deck consistently unless you go like all out.
Yeah.
So that was what put me into like panic mode, and I was like, okay, all right, I guess I'll turn to some degeneracy. Like, it's not, I don't like to do it, but like, when one side is degenerate, sometimes you have to like fight fire with fire.
I know how you feel. That resounds with me very strongly. I totally agree. So yeah, so where did DLR Andy come from? Like, okay, so I guess the list was based off Dean's list. Haha, Dean's list. Which is why the Canadian reference was there. So yeah, you, as in, what prompted you to, you know,
Pick this deck.
look at DLR Andy? Yeah.
Well, you're the one who brought it up to me, Ben. When I asked you like what runner decks you thought would be good, you're like DLR Andy. I'm like, why? I tried this deck. It doesn't seem that good. You don't get to like steal agendas. Your like pressure is like pretty bad. But you pointed out to me that like DLR just sidesteps a lot of problems that corps are trying to pose right now. Like corps have all these threats that normal runners have to keep in mind. Like I have to have film critic so that I don't get mid-seasoned or get hunter seekered, but I also have to like have scrubber so I can trash assets. It's like the corps are so diverse because they're pulling the runner in all these different directions, and even the really good like good stuff run a lot runners like Wizard or Andy are having trouble fitting in all the tech slots they need to fight every angle.
Yeah, and in these kind of environments, it seems pretty clear that degenerate decks are the kinds that shine. Those that can bypass all the typical corp strategies. So
Yeah, sadly. And it doesn't get too
yeah,
much more degenerate than this, honestly.
I have to agree. Yeah, I
It,
mean, at
diaper,
least with
but yeah, this is like a
yeah,
level under
diaper
diaper.
is yeah. Well, even without practice, you still managed to do very respectably well. I mean, I must say, you were basically undefeated with your HP deck, and your Andy deck lost 2 games, but those were on time, which you probably would have won, right? I mean,
I think I had a
it,
really good shot, yeah. This
yeah. So you were basically undefeated that day, in inverted commas, which is quite an achievement. So yeah, very good meta calls. Let's delve into the deck. Let's start from the top and work our way to the bottom. So yeah, we'll just look at differences between Dean's list and yours. So Fisk Investment Seminar is the first one that pops out immediately. So that came up through our testing, right? We had this one game where you play your DLR Andy,
the one game where I
and
played DLR Andy and I discovered this problem. Yeah.
yes, I was playing HB spam like Moon Knights, and halfway through the game, I realized I had no agenda scored. I was kind of done. I had like 20 cards left in my deck, and he had his whole engine going. I was like, I'm ready to hit the concede button because that exists in JNet, but I'll just play it out for Timmy's pleasure. And actually ended up happening to me, and why did you include Fisk in the end?
Yeah, so in the midst of this like gauntlet of me throwing anything at the wall to fight uh, Moon Knights, I was like, okay, I'll try DLR Andy. Like the theory is they draw a ton of cards, right? Kalimsha has mentioned to me that he ends his games basically with like 6 or fewer cards in R&D every game. So in this sort of situation, you probably want to mill them out.
Yeah.
So I decided to try this mill deck. So I ignore his board. I get everything set up. I'm like, okay, I can mill him out. And Ben is like super distraught, right? He's like, I can't win. I can't do anything. And then as I'm like actually milling him out, I have this like sinking feeling. I'm like, wait, he has all these Maryland campaigns ticking. He has like everything he wants on the board. Like, how do I actually mill him out? Like at the start of his turn before his draw, his Maryland campaign just runs out and goes back in his deck and he draws it. So I have to like trash every Maryland campaign, but then you just like and mill them, right, with DLR. Yeah. But then he friends them back. Like I don't have enough clicks to do all of this, and he can always like recur friends with Clone Suffrage, friends out like AAL plus Maryland. Like if he just puts out as many lines and Marylands on the board as possible, like I can't mill him because I have to spend all my time dealing with that. So he's already like won on agenda points at this point. You have. I don't know why I'm referring to you in the third person. Yeah. So, and I have like black file ticking down, and I like when it gets to 2 counters, I just concede because I can't actually win. It's pretty demoralizing.
That was just hilarious. I mean, it was demoralizing for me as well.
Yeah.
Like I only had 1 Jackson in the deck. Stupid Moon and Ice.
Yeah.
Jackson is such a good card. But
we thought that like the 1 Jackson would doom you, right? But turns out Maryland campaign has a lot of uses.
It does, yeah, and which is why I kind of advocated for you to have it in your deck. But well, California meta not that degenerate, I guess. Yeah, so well, back to the start of the story. The whole reason why you eventually settled on Fisk was because that forces the corp to draw, and if they are forced to draw when they have no cards left in their deck, they auto lose. So
yep. So this one card for that one situation, basically.
Yeah. So what I'm interested to hear is, during the day, did Fisk come into play at all? Because you didn't play against a single HB spam deck.
I played it once against Personal Evolution when they were pretty poor, and it wasn't all that good. It was okay. But
interesting.
But it's like a fine draw card in certain situations where the corp is really poor. You don't mind flooding them with cards and making them discard a few. Usually, at other times, you try to save it in your hand so you can surprise, like, mill them out at the end if they're trying to calculate things so they don't die.
Yeah, I can see it as a very good, +2 mill in the event that you're trying to win via some combination of DLR and Black File. So yeah, but it's interesting to hear that it didn't occur often at all. So it seems like it's mostly a tech card.
Mostly, you don't want to let the corp draw for free because this is like a race deck, right? It's not that good at stopping the corp from winning after a certain point. You just hope to have your thing set up and win before they do. So accelerating their game plan is quite bad for you.
Yeah, and asset spam is completely contingent on seeing lots of cards in their hand. The more they draw, the more they can spam. So you never ever want to play Fisk in most standard situations.
Against asset spam.
Yes, against spam. Alright, so that's Fisk. Moving down the line, we have your draw engine. So we discussed this briefly and we agreed that 3 Sports Hopper, which was in the original list, was not necessary for the deck to run. I mean, it's nice that you have lots of link to win those Nexus traces when you need to, but you aren't winning traces all that often. So we went with 2 Hopper instead, and that was where you came up with the idea of replacing that draw card with a drug dealer instead. So what's the reasoning behind that, and how effective were those changes?
Drug dealer is really good. It draws you a card every turn. The credit loss is the credit loss is big, but you have this card called Dr. Lovegood, and he doesn't do anything on some turns, like a fair number of turns, and then you just save yourself that credit. So yeah, drug dealer is really strong, especially in close games where you have to spend a lot of time like keeping the corp down so they don't just win. But then you're not spending your clicks drawing, and so you're not advancing your game plan either. So if you have a drug dealer down in that situation, you're like really favored because you're still getting to dig through your deck and get all your pieces together.
Yeah, that I mean, card draw is often a limiting factor in this Andy deck because you have your combo is quite your ideal combo is massive. You have what Nexus, you need DLR, a way to tag yourself, which is Nexus. You need Citadel to clear the tag. You need Jack Sinclair for 5 click turns, and power taps. That's a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, it's a ton. And Aaron Marone, you want to drop tags if the corp manages to stick one on you. You want Fall Guys and Source so the corp doesn't score. You want to have access to Black File in case they do manage to win. It's a lot of stuff you want.
It is, yeah. I mean, even in like your final game against John, I saw that you were like there were lots of situations where you were tagged and you had the ability to keep milling, but you just wanted to draw through your deck instead because you wanted to see. I don't know. I think it was the Jack Sinclair.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it just goes to show how much more efficient the deck gets if you can find all your pieces, and Drug Dealer does that for you. So that's great. Yeah. Okay, so another draw card we have here is John Masanori, but this is not so much for the draw, I would say. All credit for this card actually goes to Timmy. So I was actually playing DLR Andy against you, and that one game, I was trying to get the mill going against you, but you, being the annoying piece of thing that you are, refused to rest your ice. So it turns out that you can't get milled if you don't rest your ice.
If your only way of self-tagging is Security Nexus, yeah.
Yeah, and that was super annoying.
Yeah, so certain decks like Cerebral Imaging can afford to just like trash all their res dice and never res anything. And then you can't play DLR because you can't get tagged. So in this very niche situation, you need John Masanori so that you can jack out and get a tag.
Yep, that's a get out of jail free card. And yeah, both very smart counterplay by Timmy to not res your ice while you were playing CI, and also very smart counterplay by adding John Mas.
He's also good card draw against like acid spam in particular, so not a bad slot.
Actually, it is. Yeah, come to think of it, I mean, I keep referring to the finals game with John, but that was the only one I got to that was recorded, I think, for you. So you actually had John Mas and Nexus out both at the same time. So potentially, when you failed a Nexus trace, you would actually take 2 tags. Did you ever find this to be a problem?
It's pretty annoying if you're not thinking about it, but normally it's not a big problem because like the corp is not usually set up to fight you on tags. You have so many options for dealing with tags and ignoring them.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you were tagged for ages that game, but you still managed to keep him poor and shake them all, which was pretty impressive. Speaking of shaking tags, one thing that really helps you to do that is your economy. So we did a bit of discussion about this. It's Power Tap versus Underworld Contact. Both 2 to play, both resources, both drip econ. Underworld Contact, also better known as Mr. Phones on this side of the pond. But
Jason
anyway,
loves that one.
yeah. Shout out to Alex. So what is your take on this issue? Power Tap versus Underworld, and why did you eventually decide to stick to Power Tap?
I was the one who advocated Underworld Contact at first, because when I first played the deck, I was like, these power taps seem pretty bad. Like, I put them on my supplier, and I put them out eventually, and they don't seem to do anything. I understood that, okay, you can make 2 credits a turn once you're set up, right? You go Nexus Trace, gain a credit, and then end of your turn, Citadel Trace, gain a credit. So that's nice. But, like, earlier than when you're ready to do that, it doesn't do anything. So I thought maybe Underworld Contact would be a smarter choice, because you can get the money earlier once you set up your link and get 1 credit every turn. So we tried it out, and it turns out Power Tap like overtakes Underworld Contact fairly consistently. You get like incidental traces from like ice and getting tagged and removing them in games. So Underworld gives you the money a little earlier, but it's ultimately not as lucrative. And then there are certain like games like the final where Power Tap made me like a lot of credits. So yeah. Also it like kills all of their trace ice, so that's really, really good too.
Yeah, that's a very nice side benefit. And against CTM as well, I would imagine.
Against Kyle James on food codes, he trashed like 4 ice that game. 4 face down ice that you would just never res and trash eventually.
Oh, wow.
And I was like befuddled by what was happening. He didn't seem to be doing anything. And it turns out it was all like Sherlocks and Ichis,
Oh.
right? Like those ice are
Ouch.
not good against this strategy. They don't do anything.
No. Oh dear.
Mm-hmm.
That's your biggest nightmare is food codes. Power tap or link decks if you are heavy into those tracer ice. Whew,
So
that's pretty good.
3 power tap, pretty good. I was wrong. Everyone else was right. Everyone else who I talked to about this deck was like, power tap, best card. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that just goes to show the big difference between 1 crit a turn and 2 crits a turn.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it means you get it set up later. So, alright. So we have that. And finally, the last card on the list is Mammon, which used to be an Overmind in that slot. So, I guess the biggest question with prospective DLR Andy players is how often do you actually use Mammon? Like, in the finals game, again, you seem to overcharge your Mammon a lot. Like, you were removing counters from it at the end of your turn a lot. And you were bleeding a lot of credits. So, did Mammon seem worse to you in that moment?
Then Overmind? No, definitely not. When I played with Overmind, I would just like run out of counters after 3 turns, and then I have to draw for my other Overmind. It's and then I eventually decided, okay, I just have to play 3 Overmind, otherwise I can't break ice. Yeah, Mammon is really expensive, but like the deck is not bad at making money, and you also don't really have that much of a use for your money. You want to have you want to be competitive with the corp so that they can't beat you on traces, but other than that, you're not using your money for anything. So why not have this icebreaker that breaks anything if you have enough money?
Seems good.
Yep. It's kind of a no-brainer.
I mean, it's a very tricky breaker to use. Oftentimes you end up overpowering it and end up not breaking subroutines or overestimating the number of subroutines you need to break. So yeah, because of that, it is very expensive. But otherwise, it's really good for getting those siphons in a pinch, getting into those remotes in a pinch.
Yeah, Mammon is awkward early game because you're still setting up. You need a lot of credits to get your Nexus down. You can't really afford to use it at that time. But I'm fairly certain that that's overweighed by the fact that it just never runs out. And you can, once you do get it down, it's like a constant threat to the corp. Like all their ice is vulnerable.
Yeah, that's the big thing. And as you said, you basically make, I mean, you don't make infinite money, but the only money you need is enough to outtrace the corp on the Citadel Sanctuary at the end of your turn. That's all. All the other money, dump it on Mammon, no big deal. So yeah, seems pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, alright, so that basically wraps up the deck. Any other parts of the deck you want to highlight, or any interesting moments on the day?
Again, let me check my notes. I think we mentioned most things. I guess I'll give everyone a tip that really helped me out with this deck, which is you actually want to face check a lot more than you might think with a degenerate solitaire runner. Yeah, because actually your clock is very slow. This deck is very, very slow. You have to play it really quickly not to go to time. That's what I found out. And you have a million triggers to manage. But anyway, yeah, so the reason you can actually beat corps is because they have to respect that you're still a criminal and you'll still siphon them and steal their agendas when they're poor. So you force them to make a ton of money and ice up all their servers and res their ice so that you don't get single accesses and win that way. So after you do all of that, then you crush them with your solitaire late game play.
Aha, so you still poke around randomly on R&D or the single ice remote every now and then?
Yeah, I won a lot of games just doing that.
Nice. Okay. I honestly, that's not something I didn't really know either. Good to know. Yeah, that's really cool. Speaking of going to time, I was really afraid for you after you came back after your second round. I think you were. Someone made a note that you were 31st of 48 after 2 rounds, and we're like, wow, what a field this is. If Timmy Wong's 31st out of 48, this must be a pretty tough field. But in reality, you just went to time a bunch. Turns out that dealing with Estelle Moon triggers and a Dodo Andy deck is not a very good combination in a tournament. I think that's something we overlooked in our testing. The combination of runner and corp.
Yeah, and JNet simplifies a lot of the triggers for you.
Yeah, it.
And there are no time restrictions, so we didn't realize that. Like, oh yeah, time just got called 20 minutes ago, and I would have lost because I have 0 points because I'm trying to mill the core back.
Yeah, was there anything you did in subsequent rounds, because you made a very big comeback and apparently didn't really go to time?
I just got better about managing my time, like pre-shuffling my decks and trying to like rush through my triggers as much as possible instead of being like deliberate with them. You just have to like push yourself to play quickly. After certain rounds, I would ask my opponent, like, was there anything that I was really slow about? And I would try to fix those issues in my next game.
That's very awesome. Always learning from your weaknesses and improving. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's how you crush a regionals. Very well played, Timmy.
Thanks again. Thank you, Ben.
Yep.
You were like a huge help. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can say the same when I go for a tournament. There's so much pressure on me to perform now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But anyway,
you can do it this weekend.
This weekend, indeed, we shall see. Well, but in the meantime, anyway, thanks again for coming on my channel.
My pleasure, as always.
Yep, and to the rest of you, hopefully that was an insightful look into how Timmy upgrades friendships and makes people sad with mailing them out. Till next time, happy net running, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.
Take care.